I just watched the final of the Grand Tour, and like many of you, I was sad, and not because it was the final expedition from these masters of metaphor, these incredible ageless auto explorers. No, farewell bash to Botswana by the boys was a fitting tribute, and it was a fantastic episode. All the money in the world, everything that Amazon could throw at it, was an outstanding tribute. No, it wasn't the fact that it was the last episode that made me sad. It was something Jeremy Clarkson said as he drove a heavily butchered 50-year-old classic Lancia Monte Carlo all the way across from Zimbabwe to Botswana. And it went something like this.
There are lots of reasons why we're jacking this show in, but for me, one of the main ones is I'm simply not interested in electric cars. They are just white goods. They're washing machines, they're microwave ovens. You can't review those, you can't enjoy them. They are just shit.
So Jeremy, used EV myth number one busted. We don't agree. They don't lack soul, they're not white goods. They've leapfrogged auto technology 20 years in the future. Designs that we've never seen before. And talk about performance and flair. Well, just let your mind drift just for a moment before we continue. Hi, I'm Roscoe and this is AmazingEV, our dedicated used EV marketplace. And with the increasing number of drivers now seeing value in the used EV marketplace, we thought it was time to revisit some of the annoying myths still hanging around in the EV market. And I'm not talking about your next door neighbour asking annoying questions. Myth number two, I'm still hearing I can't find a cheap or affordable EV. They're just too expensive. Well, that's just not true. Well, we're seeing EV prices coming down and becoming more affordable every day. Already you can get Nissan Leafs between 10 and 30k, Miavs around 10 to 15k, Konas around 30, Teslas already at 35 to 40, Model Ys at 50, before you even start getting into the more affordable European range above 50. In some cases, some Tesla Model 3s from 2019 have already cracked 35,000. Plenty of value there now if you're prepared to look around. And we can always go one step further and ask, what is an affordable used EV? We think it's any EV in that 25 to 35, 40k range. It's where the new owner's taken a bit of a hit on the depreciation and the used car buyer is still seeing great value, an almost brand new car, plenty of years left in reliability, and they're gonna have a great driving experience from an almost brand new car for much cheaper. Then it becomes affordable and then it starts to become attractive as a used EV. Myth number three, the old chestnut. I'm not buying a used EV because the battery's only going to last 3 or 4 years. It's going to cost thousands to replace it. There's no evidence, no proof of this taking place at all. In fact, the exact opposite. Data that we've seen from overseas collected by a company called Recurrent, who's been studying thousands of Teslas over 8-9 years of the history of Model 3s, Model S's, has shown the exact opposite. Battery degradation is a thing, but it doesn't mean systemic failure in batteries is a thing. Battery degradation, like any battery, means that as it gets older, the chemistry starts to wear out, it's not as efficient. That means you get less range. Doesn't mean you get less performance. So expect 2 or 3, 4 or 5% in the first year and then 1% every year after that, giving battery range and life up to 10, 12 years. In saying this, we highly recommend that you do get a battery check on any used EV that you're looking at, in case there is some systemic failure. If that's the case, in many cases it'll be under manufacturer's warranty anyway, which are now 6, 7, 8, 9, even 10 years on some new EVs. That'll transfer over to the used EV, as well as a vehicle inspection report which covers all the usual things, brakes, suspension, body condition, that sort of thing. Also get a battery condition report as well, often from the manufacturer or an onboard diagnostic tool, or perhaps a third-party battery tester, which are popping up around Australia as well. Myth number 4, we're hearing all the time, EVs are going to be more expensive to maintain. Again, just not true. Petrol vehicles are far more expensive to maintain than any EV. Sure, many systems are common between a petrol car and an electric car, like brakes, suspensions and steering, that sort of thing. They're all going to need regular maintenance. In many cases though, things like brakes just aren't wearing out as quickly because of regenerative braking. There's less wear and tear on the discs and on the pads. But the things that are different are much simpler and far less likely to wear out than a petrol car over 5, 10. It still varies a lot between manufacturers, and Teslas, for example, require almost no maintenance. Air filters after a couple of years, basic checks on brakes and suspension, those sorts of things. Other cars like Hyundai's have a more regular servicing program, which still requires a bit more manufacturer servicing to maintain the warranty. We still suggest when you're buying a used EV, check the maintenance booklet, make sure all the servicing has been done, and see what servicing is required to ensure that your EV stays in tip-top condition. Granted, some EV parts and EV tyres are more expensive than petrol cars, and that is affecting insurance costs and premiums at the moment. EV parts are more expensive, but we think as EV numbers grow and scale increases, EV part costs will come down and the insurance will actually get more reasonable. Myth number 5, a new one that we've just started to hear. I'm going to buy a hybrid because it's a great stopgap between a petrol car and an electric car. We totally disagree. At AmazingEV, we're only dealing in used EVs and used EVs only. We don't think hybrids are the solution. We think it's like bolting an electric motor onto your petrol lawnmower and thinking that you've solved some sort of problem. If nothing else, you've created a more complex solution, and now you've got 2 power plants to break down, 1 petrol, 1 electric. It's not solving any problems, it's just adding complexity and still using petrol. The same goes for cars, whether it's a mild hybrid, a full hybrid, a plug-in hybrid, whatever permutation, they still have an electric motor and they've got a petrol motor, more complexity, and they still use petrol. No problem solved, just greater complexity, more things to break down. Like vaping, hybrids don't solve the problem, they just replace it with another. So please put your comments below. Let's kick off, shall we? Myth number 6, EV tyres don't last as long because EVs are heavier. Busted. Jump on Google, check with your local auto association. In Australia, it might be the NRMA or something equivalent in your state. Google how often you should replace the tyres on your car, and you'll come up with an answer of around about 40,000 Ks. Well, guess what? It's exactly the same for EVs. This is a Tesla Model Y. I replaced the tyres at about 40,000 Ks. They were wearing out, they were done, they were ready. I've had many different cars, Tiguan, Volkswagen Caddies, Audi A3s, all required tyre replacement around about the 40,000, 45,000 K mark. Exactly the same, cars that weighed many different weights. EVs, we don't think are any different. Is this Model Y heavier? Well, this one weighs about 1,900 kilograms with me in it. The Tiguan 2019 model 4-wheel drive weighed about 18,050 kilos, so just fractionally smaller. This is a bigger car, more room, almost exactly the same. Take the Kia EV9, for example, weighs in at about 2,500 kilos. Takes 7 people, almost exactly the same weight as the Ford Raptor truck. So a Raptor with its off-road tyres, how long are they going to last for? Around about exactly the same. It's a good idea though, if you are looking to buy a used EV about the 45,000 K mark, make sure the previous owner has replaced the tyres. Chances are they already have, and it's going to save you a bundle. We're also seeing that EV tyres are a bit more expensive than regular car tyres at the moment, and we're not sure the reason for that. Perhaps they're rated for a little bit higher weight, which may or may not be an issue, but in many cases we've seen many used EV owners changing the tyres for regular tyres, getting better performance, more comfort, and just as long a range. So have a look around. There's a few other options out there apart from EV tyres. Before we continue on busting these ridiculous myths that keep pervading the EV market, let me answer a question that many people ask us, and that's why we even started a dedicated used EV market in the first place. Why do we need one? Well, the answer to that's very simple. And that was to help people buy EVs, and used EVs in particular. And there's many ways we think we can do that, and starting with a dedicated used EV marketplace. Now, what makes us different from the other marketplaces out there that have lots of different cars and lots of different types of cars? Well, if we just focus on used EVs and used EV only, not even hybrids, we can specialise in providing this sort of information and help that used EV buyers and sellers need in particular to buy and sell EVs. For some reason, EV ownership has become an incredibly partisan thing. You've got a whole camp of haters over there and a whole camp of lovers, and a whole heap of people in the middle not sure what to do. We want to help those people that are in the middle and are looking to buy an EV or looking to get into the electric vehicle market, and we think used EVs are a fantastic and affordable way to do this now. So by providing information to help buyers find the right car, choose the car that suits them most, and make sure they get a great deal on a used EV, we're offering a range of information on the website amazingev.com.au. And for sellers, we're helping to prepare cars for sale, taking photos and video and promoting them more. Rather than sitting there waiting with a static advertisement, waiting for the buyers to come to you, we're going out there and selling that car, promoting on our social media, putting our best foot forward to help you promote and sell your car quicker. So if you need any help buying or selling a used EV, contact us here at Amazing EV and we'd love to help. Anyway, back to the myths. And that leads us to something else we hear all the time. I don't want to buy an EV because I don't want to save the world. And yes, debatably, there's more pollution from building an EV than a petrol car. But we respect that many EV owners and many EV buyers are driven by a world that's cleaner and much more environmentally friendly in driving an EV. But you don't have to be one of those people. You can drive an EV and it has nothing to do with being environmentally friendly. It's just an electric motor as a powertrain. You've been using it in your hairdryer, you've been using it in your electric drill, you've been riding it on Sydney trains, the new metro, the light rail, they've all got electric motors. So many EV owners are not trying to save the world and they're not environmentally orientated. Many just see EVs and electric motors as the obvious choice for transportation to create a more efficient car, a quieter car, one with a better sound system, one that goes quicker, is cheaper to run, and just all around a more efficient and more convenient vehicle for driving around town. So we'll help anyone who loves an EV for whatever reason, and saving the planet is optional. Myth number 8, I'm not buying a used EV because they're unreliable and they're built in China and they're built like absolute crap. I'm not sure, but we don't think there's any proof that any EV, or any petrol car for that matter, that's built in China is any more or less reliable than any other car built in any other part of the world. But no, and I mean no car is immune from reliability or faults that come along with any sort of manufacturing process from any brand, from any country, from any car. And there are a few Chinese brands that have come to Australia in the last 4 or 5 years now, brands like LDV, Haval, Chery, that are offering very affordable, very cost-effective petrol cars, SUVs and vans in about that 35,000 to 45,000 range that are making bigger inroads into the other traditional brands. So they're here, they're offering reliable, quality vehicles, whether it's an EV or not. But honestly, we can't find any evidence to suggest that EVs from any particular country are any more or less reliable than petrol cars built in the same country. And in actual fact, EVs with less moving parts have and are more likely to be more reliable because there's nothing to break down. There's just less moving parts, less complexity, and in all likelihood there's going to be less problems, less to maintain, and better reliability from EVs. Most owners that we've seen have channeled that early adopter enthusiasm into care, love, and affection for their EVs. So if you're looking to buy a used EV, chances are it's going to be easy to find a good one that's in great condition and has still got plenty of life left in it. EV myth number 9. Used EVs, any EVs, are more expensive to run than petrol cars. Absolute garbage. With the increased price of electricity over the last few years, and with petrol prices maybe sometimes coming below $2, again and again we hear that EVs are now more expensive to run than petrol cars. I used to own a Volkswagen Tiguan, and at petrol at around about $2 a litre. I know it comes down and goes up a bit depending on factors it's almost impossible to ascertain. I used to put around about 55 litres in every week, so that was around about just about over $100 a week, and that gave me 550 Ks. Quick maths, that's about 18 cents per kilometre running cost for my old ICE car. This Model Y I charge every night at home, off-peak power rates, 30 cents a kilowatt hour. This vehicle takes 60 kilowatt hours, but I'm never running it from 0 to 100. I'm always just topping up. But on average, I'm getting around about 350 for a full tank of 60, which has only cost me 30 cents a kilowatt hour. So that's basically $18 to get 350 Ks. Or if we just double it, $36 to get 700 kilometres. Quick maths, that's only 5 cents a kilometre in running costs alone. If I do go to a Tesla supercharger, if I'm out and about and I need to top up, which is just like going to a petrol station, It's fast, it's quick, but it costs a bit more. It costs up to 70 cents a kilowatt hour. So my 60 kilowatt hours to fill it completely would cost about $43 to get my 350 Ks. That's still 12 cents per kilometre running costs, way less than a petrol car. If I go to a Tesla supercharger and pay maximum rates for electricity there, it's still less, way less, 2/3 of running a petrol car. So myth busted, they're way cheaper in running costs. Before we even start getting into servicing and ongoing maintenance, they're way cheaper to run on a day-to-day basis than a petrol car. Myth number 10, well, this is just everything else. It's just completely ridiculous and just keeps getting offered up as an excuse and a reason not to buy an EV, starting with they're going to catch fire in the garage. Check the facts on evfiresafe.com. They're tracking all EV fires across the world and across Australia, and I think you'll find there hasn't been an EV fire this year at all. The same can't be said for petrol cars. So it's just absolutely ridiculous. They're not going to catch fire. And we keep hearing there's not enough chargers. Again, it's absolutely ridiculous. Name anywhere you want to go across at least the eastern seaboard of Australia, and there'll be a charger, a Tesla one, or another brand of any sort. I'm biased, of course, because I've got a Tesla, and I love Tesla chargers and the Tesla charging network. But there's one about every 200 Ks. You can go anywhere, including this car to Brisbane, to Canberra, anywhere you like. You can plan your route, and there are plenty of chargers on the way. Yes, there needs to be more work done in the metro and inner city areas. Some suburbs just aren't represented with chargers, but suddenly, if you do a bit of a drive around, you start seeing them. And if you own an EV, it's very easy to find. There's a plethora of apps, maps, and whatever other information online to help you find chargers, and you can find electricity without a problem. That's if you haven't even taken the opportunity to install a charger at home. But you can live with an EV without a charger, without any problem at all. You can just go to a local charger once or twice a week, top up and get 400, 500, 600, 700 kilometres of range, and that is plenty. And the most ridiculous thing we still keep hearing is EVs don't suit my lifestyle. Well, there's an EV for almost every lifestyle out there. Utes, SUVs, sports cars, sedans. Yes, there's still a lack of vehicles to tow a 3.5-tonne trailer. But for most of us around town, back and forth, in and out, up and down, there is an EV for you. I've lost count. There could be 60 or 70 models available. If anything, people and the media are now starting getting worried about the amount of competition there is for EVs. 3 years ago, there weren't enough. Now there's too many. There are EVs out there for you, and if you want something a little bit more affordable and still almost brand new, there are plenty of beautiful used EVs available right now as well. And the last most ridiculous myth we keep hearing is range anxiety. Now, I don't know who came up with this. Yes, you have to fill your car up. Yes, if you've got a petrol car, when the tank gets low, you go and fill it up. There's enough tech in this car to tell you in advance, and when it does get to zero, it just keeps going anyway. It won't let you run out. But if you do have anxiety, we understand and respect, but I promise you, you're not going to have anxiety driving an EV. But in all fairness, what is true at the moment is EV insurance is more expensive than petrol car insurance. And insurance premiums have gone up astronomically for all sorts of reasons, for all cars. There was a scarcity of parts during COVID, and then suddenly that seems to have carried on. But for some reason, yes, insurance premiums have gone up a lot, and they are more expensive for EVs. They started off cheaper, but now they seem to be way more expensive. The reason for that we've heard is that EV parts are definitely more expensive from some manufacturers than the equivalent petrol car. Headlights, bumpers, anything like that, it all seems to be more expensive. The parts are more expensive from the manufacturers. Perhaps that's just because they're new, perhaps that's because there's less being made at the moment. But as scale of manufacturing and EV popularity grow, we expect those prices to come down, and perhaps EV insurance will normalise a bit as driver behaviour also adapts to driving EVs as well. We have heard that there are certainly more men that have accidents in EVs, and EVs are more prone to accidents than petrol cars. And indeed, perhaps that's because people are driving faster, perhaps they're quicker than they thought, perhaps the acceleration is just too great on some of them. So there's a number of reasons, but we look forward to the day when insurers, and please, if you're listening, insurance prices start to come down. And yes, EV depreciation over the last 12 months has been higher than petrol cars. But premium cars in the petrol division and EV division have both suffered massive depreciation in the last 12 months. Used car pricing has come back after COVID, when it was ridiculously high, cars were going for incredible prices. For premium cars, they've come down astronomically, ICE cars and EVs. And with manufacturers dropping price to promote sales on new cars, that's certainly affecting the used car market as well. And we feel for those sellers and owners who've lost money on paper. But we hope you've enjoyed your experience owning an EV, because we certainly have. We're in the same boat. We're underwater technically, but we don't see we've lost money. We're just seeing the enjoyment of owning an EV. And I can't wait to own this car for many, many years to come. We empathise with you, we feel for you. You may have lost money, but that does represent an opportunity for anyone buying a used EV to start finding cars that are in the $25,000 to $35,000 range that are now becoming affordable, represent long-term value, and going to be a great car for years to come. While there's technically some losers, there's many winners here as well. So most used EV myths are just that. They're just myths. I mean, and what's a myth anyway? It's a falsehood or a saying or some folklore that just came into being when enough people started to believe it. It's now time to start dispelling and busting these myths, because they're just no longer true. Driving an EV is a fantastic experience. Owning a used EV is going to give you great value, long-term driving, and an incredible experience, not to mention saving you a lot of money. I'm Roscoe, this has been Amazing EV, and if you need any help buying or selling a used EV, contact us at amazingev.com.au, our dedicated used EV marketplace, and we'll see you next time.